on industrial research and FMCG perspective. So when you look into FMCG, the full form of FMCG is fast moving consumer goods. So for people who would like to relate what is fast moving consumer goods, basically these are the ones that you buy regularly, use them, and you do repeat purchase. So for example, toothpaste, shampoos, ketchups, laundry, liquids, dishwashers, all these things fall under what we call FMCG. And this is a general perspective of industrial research to give you some examples from the industry that I represent, and Unilever as an example, which the company that I've been working with for the last 15 years. Before I move into how research is connected with business, I have to give you a little bit of background of what exactly Unilever is. So for people who know about it, it may be a repetition, but for many others, Unilever is a global company which was formed about more than 100 years back. So in about 1885, Sir William Hesketh Lever, he first made something called Sunlight soap. Sunlight soap was the first branded soap at that point of time, and it was made because Europe was reeling in cholera and dysentery, particularly in those Victorian slums in those days. And the purpose by which he prepared these soaps was to improve the lives of the people as well as to grow his business. And he brought out the importance of hygiene to ensure the purpose of cleanliness in a commonplace environment. So that was the starting point from which the journey of the company started. And today, as you see, it's a global company with a turnaround of around 51 billion euros per year, almost spanning to all across the globe in different countries. Now, if I just look into various brands that we make, and what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to connect this with the perspective of research later. So try to understand about the different brands, and you have seen all of these brands. Many of them are available in India and a few of them elsewhere. Uh, at some point of your time, you might have used them. And to give you some numbers, it's about 2.5 billion people who uses one of these brands daily to ensure that they look good, feel good, and also get more out of life. So if you look into the kinds of products and the science that goes into the products of those brands, uh, it can be classified into three different categories to say. The first one being beauty and personal care, from which I am in right now. And when you talk about beauty and personal care, think of everything that you do starting from the day you start, from just after waking up till the time you go to sleep. So all the different things, starting from toothpaste to your shampoos and soaps, and then cosmetics and sunscreens and all those kind of things are falling under the beauty and personal care category. Then, of course, there are foods and refreshments, which can be the ice creams, the ketchups, the jams, and things like that. And of course, home care, which is related to laundry, taking care of your fabrics. So it can be detergents, conditioners, hard surfaces, for example, utensils and things like that. So you need to do cleaning of them regularly. So all those things forms part of certain categories which Unilever represents. We don't go by the numbers here, but just to let you know the kind of science and the research that goes into in making the products affordable to the consumers, making it appealable to the consumers with the going time. Now, when I'm talking about all these things, so what are the business drivers of research? Why are we talking about what are the brands and what the company does and how we expand into different countries, etc.? Because when we are talking about the business, we are talking about industrial research, because industrial research is closely connected to the business. Your business and industrial research go hand in hand. And when we talk about the business, it is closely connected with the consumers. So whatever industrial research that you do goes to the business, but that business should cater to the consumer needs. And therefore, consumer becomes a part, or maybe the main part of any industrial research that we do. And again, consumers are very closely connected with all the things that you see around us. So consumers are affected by the natural environment, they're affected by the peers, they're affected by the surroundings, and therefore research activities really ponder upon solving the problems that the consumers as a whole are going to face. Moving forward, so the kind of research that you generally would need to do in a consumer's perspective obviously will be slightly different from a core research that one would do to understand an in-depth science for a particular topic. Therefore, the research focus is really on the immediate as well as the future consumer needs. To give you some examples so that you try to relate what I'm trying to say on this, is that about 800 million people are there who does not even have the access of safe drinking water over the world. And amongst them, about 2 billion people who does not have proper sanitation facilities across the world. More than 2 billion children, they die even today because of preventable diseases, which are like diarrhea. Simple diseases, but because of the lack of the health infrastructures in different countries, this is the kind of situations that one faces. While we know that 1 out of 10 adults are obese in the world, there are about a billion people who does not even get the food that they need to survive in their daily lives. And therefore, the business and the brands are a part of the solution that needs to come from these problems. And today, as you see, it is not doing a business where you just produce and make profit out of it. It's not about producing larger quantities so that you can sell more and make profit out of it. It is mostly about also realizing what is important in terms of sustainable living and also leaving a fair share for the future generation. So it's all about how to take care of the immediate environments and also give save something for our future generations. So business has becoming different in the way the outlook is. And when business becomes different, the kind of research that goes into it also becomes different. But all of these needs to be connected at the end with what the consumers really want. There are different ways of doing business and research that would lead to agricultural raw material procurement from sustainable sources. Now you might be thinking, where is the chemistry in that? But there are a lot of chemistries involved, and I'm going to touch upon a few of them. Then people's well-being and health as the priority rather than just providing some samples in a random basis. Also protecting the planet from the future generation, for the future generation, from the nuances that we are having. Some of the nuances we have seen, like climate changes, plastic pollutions, and things like that. So how to imbibe the goodness with which you can still make a product, serve it to a consumer, get them happy, but at the same time, do not affect the environment and the social footprint. And that is something which we call as sustainability. You might be hearing sustainability word everywhere nowadays. Sustainable future, sustainable living planet, planet positive, these kind of words are buzzwords nowadays, right? So, when we look into sustainability as a driving value, we see the challenges not as problems to be solved, but as innovation and innovative researches that will help the business move in a much more productive and friendly ways to the environment. By doing all these things, what happens is that you actually build a brand equity. By building the brand equity, you drive more sales. When you drive more sales, you inspire more consumers. And when you inspire more consumers, you actually build a strong business portfolio. The investment that you need to further do for science becomes better. And it's actually a kind of a circular economy in that way, in which you lead to the forefront. Now, there are different challenges that one needs to look at. And if you look from chemistry or physics or any diverse field of science, you will feel that these challenges that needs to be tackled primarily are the problems that we are all facing regarding climate change, the problems regarding plastic pollutions, problems which are related to social inequality, and another one which is improving the health and well-being of the people. So the lack of health and well-being infrastructures across the world, including in India, you will find that these are the major challenges. There are, of course, other things as well. So you don't need to really go through the numbers that have been projected here, but it is good to know that in different ways, FMCG companies are contributing, and this is particularly for Unilever. There are various other companies who also contributes, of course, and looking into more sustainable ways of growing the business. Now, when we do all these things, the most important part, therefore, is when you grow the business, it's not about at the cost of the other factors which are involved. And again, when we grow the business, it is about doing innovative research so that you can grow the business. And so the research is focused on something which will have positive social impact. At the same time, you have to decouple the environmental footprint, and therefore you will have a sustainable business model in place. And this is the business model that I have projected for Unilever. But as a sustainable business model, there are these kind of things where you need to really decouple the issues that are there and bring a positive environment. Just to give you an example so that you can understand what I'm trying to really say. Now imagine that in your house you are using a liquid detergent, for example, and it comes in a big plastic bottle. So what do you normally do? You use your liquid detergent. After it gets over, you usually throw that bottle. And when you throw the bottle, where does it go? It goes to some landfill. It goes to somewhere where it will get dumped and it gets accumulated there. And then at the end, we have a lot of plastic problems. We know that many countries like India, they throw all of their waste into the sea. And you might have heard about how that is polluting the sea. Now, the thing is, this plastic problem, if you look into the plastic bottle part, is it required really to throw the bottle out after the first use? Now you throw it because you don't have other utility of it. But the thing is, the lifetime of that plastic bottle is not really for a single use, right? So you could have used it for many number of times, provided there was a possible option available to you. So this solution from an organization's perspective, if we really look into how environmental footprint can be tackled or how carbon footprint can be reduced, the science that may go into resolving these problems can be manifold. The first thing is, which is not science, which is really a supply chain thing, is there a possible way of collecting these bottles and sending it into a recycling plant and then get it recycled so that you really do not throw it out? But when you look from the scientific perspective, there are many things that can be done. Can we make bottles which will have less amount of plastic, but still it will have the same strength to hold the liquid? It will not fudge out or break out in the process. There are processes that one can look into where you can make a biodegradable plastic bottle so that even if you throw it, it will degrade in the environment. Or the other solution, not looking from the packaging perspective, but from the detergent liquid perspective itself, can we have a small concentrated dose, kind of a capsule kind of thing, which you put it inside your empty bottle and then fill it up with water, which will give you the same consistency of the liquid detergent that you had. Eventually, what you are doing in this process is you are throwing away a very small amount of plastic compared to a very large amount which we are doing in the process. All of these interventions require scientific understanding, and it is a mix of not only chemistry, but it also requires colloid science understanding, packaging, and therefore polymer chemistry understanding there. So holistically, when you put together all of these things in one place, you realize there are solutions that we need to think of, which are radically different and which can impact the environment in a near neutral way or in a positive way. Now, moving into something which I would like to talk to you about, general research concepts and how academia and industry, they marry each other in some place, right? So in order to know that, let me just take you through one of the graphs that I presented here on the right-hand side. So as you see here, the research comprises of a number of stages. It goes through an ideation stage to a research fuzzy front product development to commercialization. Basically, what I try to say is that it starts with an idea stage and it goes to a commercialization stage. And as an industry, when we do research for our industrial research, we really want to see our products into the market. So it goes to a commercialization stage. And every stage requires certain resources. Resources means people. Now, these resources, of course, are of varied nature. There are different kinds of resources that comes into place. In the initial stages, you'll realize that it is more to do with core research. It is more technical, where you are going to have the proof of principle, the evidences that suggest probably this can lead to a particular benefit which consumer would want, and less towards commercialization or profitability. But as we progress in the research, so initial stage, you might have 100 different ideas to solve a particular problem that consumer wants. But as you move from that idea stage, slowly build upon that, your 100 different ideas get reduced. So maybe feasibility stage where there will be 10 ideas or maybe 5 ideas. And when you have that idea stage moving into feasibility stage, you are coming to a point which we call a product prototype, which is not really a product, but somewhere it looks like a product. And that is a transition that happens from the first hill to the second hill that you can see here. And that stage is where you really move into the product development, you scale up the product, and then you put it into the market. Again, your number of resources goes up there, but the resources from the scientific background, the nature of expertise there is quite different. You require more of engineering expertise because you require processing and scale up capabilities. You require sales force, people who are in the supply chain and consumer domain. So those kind of things comes into place as we move from the idea stage to a commercialization stage. Now, this kind of work can be done both within the academia, the idea stage part can be done within the academia, and the commercialization stage part can be done by the industry. But if you look into the core knowledge and the time and effort that academia actually spends in in-depth understanding of certain scientific aspects of it, the knowledge development part is quite rich within the academia domain, whereas the business development part is quite rich into the industrial domain. And therefore, a stage comes when there is a collaboration between academia and industry so that we can have a kind of a marriage situation where both of them comes together, and what we call that is a technology development. So taking your science, putting that science into a product is actually a technology development. And in terms of processing, you will find that there are various TRLs, they call it. It's a technology readiness levels, TRL 1 to TRL 9. And so uh, the first stage of the TRLs will be towards the academia, the last stage of the TRL will be towards the industry. Both of them has its own importance at their right place. The difference is that the expertise of each of them are quite different, and we have to leverage both the expertise from both the domains. When I talk of academia, it is not only academia per se, like academic institutions, but also the core research or the fundamental research that an industry also does. Like for Unilever, we do core research for certain part of our business. And then, of course, we collaborate with certain academia so that we can build up further. And then we move into the production domain, which is a really expertise area for an industry. So I don't really want you to go through, what is that difference between academia and professional research. But what I just really want you to keep it in your mind that both of them are really important. Both of them focus are different, and both of them comes together so that you can have a holistic solution in order to solve the problems that consumers needs. And the most important part of an industrial research is for an FMCG specifically is to solve the problem that consumers have, not really to look into very in depth of a problem which consumers may not even feel that that is a problem. So that's the difference that one needs to make. There are various collaboration models. Some of them are proposed by Volin also about how industry and academia comes together, leverages their expertise so that the process become more holistic. And in today's world where there is collaboration, there is interaction, and there is mutual trust between each other, and the level 5 model, which is really a kind of collaborative sense where the research happens in the academia and there is a free flow of information between academia and the industry about what is the outcome of that research and how that can leverage into a consumer domain. So what industry does is identifies the problem based on the consumer research that it does. It goes to consumer, asks them like, what is the problem that you are facing? What is the need that you have? Sometimes consumer may not face the problem, but they have the need, which is their inherent need. They don't tell it because it doesn't come to their mind in that way, but they really feel the need. So the consumer research basically moves from the industry, understanding the problem. That problem brief is given to the research centers, which can be a core research within the organization or in academia. Academia does the core research on that specific problem and gives the validations and the prototypes back to the industry. Industry tries to scale up that thing. And then if there are challenges, that it's again to and fro discussions happens between both of them. And at the end, it comes out to be something which is we work, and also in general, the focus areas for sustainability. So just like to tell you one of the last 10 to 20 years. And there are many of these examples which I can give you. When your consumers becomes more and your consumers want to go green because they are now thinking of their environment, they're thinking of how to make less effect on your environment, they will try to think of something more natural, more benign, more less toxic, less chemical usage kind of things. So are you going to look into the trends and therefore change your research habit in such a way that you solve the problems of those consumers? The second thing is looking into the external factors. So, external factors like there are, you have just seen about COVID and the raw materials not coming and not availability, etc. So when there are trade protectionisms happens, when you do not have your own supplies, can you have the ability to produce or manufacture your own chemicals that would be required to have your products in place, so you become self determined in that space? The other one is about the supply trends, which is about the volatility of input costs, the volatility of the production that you get. So now suppose you are working on soaps, and when somebody works on soaps, it is largely from the palm oil. So palm oil, has problems with rainforest deforestation because people are planting palm oils for their own benefit, for their own profit. But palm oil is necessary for producing these soaps. Now, can we find out then a differential chemistry, or find if something else which is an alternative to palm oil, so that you reduce the risk of using that? Similarly, fossil fuels, which is quite often used for all our things, can we move into something more rational, more natural sources, which will again impact the environment in a positive way? So those are the areas in which we cater to, and we start working in that direction. Just before I come to an end, I'll just give you a few examples. You might have seen many of these ads in TVs, and there are various products. But just like to tell you one or two things from here. For example, the ad that you might have seen, which says that less water usage, Jabardast chamak ka dawa, pani lage adha. It is half use of the half bucket use. I mean, if you are using one bucket, you are going to use half bucket. So when there are claims like this goes, then what is the science behind it, which is playing a part? So the important thing is try to understand that if you are using less water, or for that instance, if you use more water, what is the reason for you to use more water? Is it a consumer cue? When you are washing your clothes, you're washing by your hands, you will find that there are foams, and you need to multiple times rinse that fabric so that you can reduce the foam. That's the way we get a cue, right? Your fabric is now clean because there is no more surfactant remaining on it because there is no foam. In that process, you are actually using a lot of water. Imagine a place which is water starved. So suppose you use the science behind it and then try to find out a solution to this problem by various means. One of the means can be, can I use a different surfactant system that may not foam? Can I use a system where the foam can be trapped? It's like an anti-foam activity. Can I put some ingredients which will react, or it will be present at a particular pH, and then it will act as an anti-foam, and therefore your foam will go down? Or can we look into an alternative surfactant system which will clean with much lesser water? Now, these are very broad challenges, but there is a lot of colloid science and chemistry going into it to find out a solution which will be best suited, which we put it in your detergent powder, and you will not realize that ingredient is present in a detergent powder, but you're going to see the end benefits. As a consumer, you're going to see only the end benefit. What is going into the product, you really don't see, right? You only see the effect out of it. Similarly, so there's the science that goes into that particular product that I'm telling. The other one, ladies use a lot of lipsticks. Now, in one of these lipstick color, it's a very specific red color in a lipstick, which is often produced from something called carmine red. It's a carmine red is a pigment which is taken from an insect. And traditionally and historically, it was extracted from the insect, and it is now harvested. That insect is also harvested, and from that you collect it. But that's not a sustainable way of living, right? Because we are actually taking from the environment something, and then we are trying to build up using that. It's a very large quantity of that insect population you will need every time you need to breed it. It's not in the natural environment, so it's not good. So therefore, the science that we have looked into is to find an alternative solution which is not from any living animal source, but can it be a plant source? Can it be a source which has been taken from the mineral, and then having the properties of, say, optics or the chemistry or even the engineering aspect of scaling up that particular compound so that it is compatible with your lipstick formulation. It is usable by people without any problem, that the color is similar, but it is from a sustainable source. So moving away from something unsustainable to something which is more sustainable source is something that is forming a key part of the research when you are looking into industrial research in environment. And again, at the end, it is all about consumers, as I told you. So it's about what people really want, and we have to work for them. Therefore, when you look into the trends of naturals, looking into natural actives, putting it into the formulation, stabilizing them into the formulation, and seeing that there is no negative Q effect, because you have many times seen that when you put a natural active and you see a color change in your product, you might feel that the product is not good to use. So how to stabilize that material within your product, because that's a trend that consumers want. When you look into your fabric remaining softer for longer, which is through a conditioner, the chemistry that goes there is how, or what are the actives that you will put in a conditioner that will deposit during your overall wash cycle. So your wash cycle in a washing machine, you do a washing followed by rinsing, and then there is a part where you can actually put a conditioner. So when you put the conditioner, by that time the pH of the solution has quite changed. It is around 4 to 5 at that stage after you have done your washing. And at that stage, when you put the conditioner, if you put the right molecules there, they will deposit onto your fabrics, and those deposited material is going to give you the softness that is necessary. And when you get the fabrics having softness, then you feel good. You feel like having a nice fragrance, and it's a soft fabric. Exactly opposite thing you do it for starch. People use starch for cotton. So you actually deposit the starch at the right place where that cotton becomes more crispy. So those are the kind of solutions which apparently will look like it's quite simple, but there is a lot of things that goes into, because in a consumer domain, people are not going to follow exactly what you say. People are going to do what they want to do. So it's not like if you say you follow step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 process, and is it the way in which your reaction will happen. But when you use as a consumer, you are not going to follow that. Some people are going to use more water, some people will use less water, some people will use half diluted material, some will use more concentrated material. But in a broader range, your science and your benefits that is proposed to a consumer should work at the end. And so therefore, there is a connect that we always have to do with consumers. There's a connect that we always have to do with the environment. And that is the way in which the academia or the core research versus industrial research flourish in an FMCG. So with that, I think my time is over. So I end my presentation with some quotes which I've taken from different sources. One of the things just I'd like to mention before I end, like the cartoon that you see here, it came out in Nature Chemistry. It's about somebody made a catalyst. So you make a brilliant catalyst in your lab. But if that catalyst takes a huge number of steps to make, which I cannot commercialize, it has no meaning. It may be a very good thing, but it will never go to the consumer as a business. But we need to have systems which are useful for the consumers as well as useful for the science. So that is the challenge that industrial research always have in terms of deliveries, because they are more focused and more short-term kind of thing. But that is where the fun is, because the challenges are very varied, very different, and it caters to the people. So with that, I end my talk. Thank you very much. Any questions, please go ahead.
Sorry, I was in mute mode. The session is now open for questions. And before that, let me thank Mr. Somnath Das for his valuable talk. Uh, Dear participants, you can have your questions ready and go ahead asking the questions. Professor Ghosh, sir. Okay, if no one has any questions right now, let me start asking you questions. Like, how relevant our education system is for developing industrial connect with the present education system or the past education system, particularly in this part of the world from Calcutta, since you belong to this part of this world.
Okay, very good question. The thing is, because I started my journey with Unilever from Science College, because I was recruited from Science College directly to Unilever many years back. But the thing is, when we look into the kind of models that we have, the education models that we have, they can be related to industrial use, but they are not directly related to some extent. I think things have changed over the number of years. We are in the education system also, you'll see a lot of changes, which has become more applied oriented now, which is important also, because once you have various aspects of applied chemistry, if you're coming from a chemistry background, it really helps to connect with the industry in that way. But otherwise, if you go into the fundamental understandings, which is really important to know, if you want to do an in-depth research, but you need to build on a few things when you move into the industry. So there are new aspects that you need to learn with time, and which I don't think at those points of time we were taught, but we learned it in a different way. But as I see nowadays with a lot of students coming from, say, ISER or BITS Pilani and things like that, I think the, the things have become much more inclusive in that sense in the applied front, which is really good.
That's really promising. Any other questions from any participants?
Should I?
Yeah, you can.
Yes, Dr. Das, first of all, congratulations on a wonderful presentations. And being a kind of academician, again, we mostly believe in the concept of a kind of a basic research and a fundamental understanding of things, so that we can get to apply in several other applied sort of areas. But how do you feel that how much it is important to have a kind of an incubation period between that kind of a core academic session from the students from very core academics, when they try to move into these sort of applied arenas of the industries?
Yeah, so there are a number of things there. When I look into academics, and I've been working with the different OI partners, Open Innovation Partners across India, one of the things that I clearly see, there is some noise. Okay, let's continue. So one of the things that I normally see is that, when you look into in-depth understanding, that is a very important thing, but there should be a time where academics should start interacting with whatever proof of principles that they have with industry at an earlier stage, because the problems that industry tries to solve is very different from a very in-depth understanding that an academician should be looking into. To give you an example, suppose you are working on some antimicrobial active, and you are looking into bacterial reduction, bactericidal compound. Basically, you want to kill the bacteria. Now, for an academician, it may be very important to understand the mode of action, how that particular active is working, and to the extent that the bacteria is dying, maybe we're very happy with 90%, 95%. So you use a control compound which kills 70% bacteria in its long run, and then you use your modified compound, it kills 95%. I'll be very happy about it, right? We are looking into 70 going to 95, and then we are interested in seeing what is the mode of action. Now, in an industrial setup, when a consumer, if you go to a person and say, I have a soap, it will kill your bacteria. Earlier soap kills 70%, this kills 95%. Will a consumer be able to see it? They will not be able to see it. Whatever you say, they have to believe it. But they believe it because they know that what you are providing them is a right solution. There is something in it which will kill it. Now, for a consumer, it doesn't matter whether it is 70 or 95. What is important for a consumer is that your product works well, and they believe that it works well. So when you are looking from a consumer perspective and an industrial research perspective, then we need to see what is the level which I should be having the bacterial kill, which is relevant for my consumer. And most of the cases, it is the log reduction. It is not about percentage reduction. So you have to look into 99.9% versus 99.99%. That is the kind of reduction that you need to look into. So when an academician is working, the focus is not really into looking into making 99.9 to a 99.99. The focus is on whether the difference is there and whether I know the mode of action is there. So when you have some idea on that, if you start connecting with the relevant industry, they will tell you the brief that they want. And maybe that will help the academics to also tune the product or tune the innovation that you have in the right way so that it can really move into the market. So it becomes a basic research to an applied research in that sense, becoming clear, because otherwise what happens, most of the times it will remain within the academic domain. It will never see the light of the industry because the need of the industry is never discussed. And even if it is discussed at a very late stage, by which there is little chance that it moves into the market. Did I answer your question?
Tanmay, did you?
Yes, yes, Mr. Dash. I have. It is very clear right now that why. What is the kind of academians? I mean, the interest of academia and what is the interest of an industry. So there is a certain gap in between, which is considered as an innovation by an academician and a sort of innovation from an industry perspective. So there is a certain gap that need to be made, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the good or bad thing, there is nothing called bad or this thing. Actually, the innovation, the nature of innovations are different from directly coming from an academia versus what is done in an industry. But when industry goes into academia, the very reason is that there are certain expertise that lie in the academic domain by virtue of the nature of the work that they do. And there are certain other expertise which lie in the industrial domain. Now, as an industry, therefore, we try to move into the right set of academicians who can help us in building things which will go into the market, maybe faster, maybe better in that way. So it's a two-way process. Sometimes academicians, they collaborate with industry directly that, yes, I have this thing and can you get me a solution? The classic example is how Pfizer actually worked, right? If you know, Pfizer is not the inventor of that vaccine. That vaccine was made by a different group in Germany, I think. And they collaborated with Pfizer because Pfizer can scale it up because they had the ability to scale up. So the academics or the person who invented that came up to the industry in that way. And then the industry can scale up to a large extent and put it into the market. Similarly, it can be a reverse direction also. If I have to get a particular processing requirement for my soap, which is much energy efficient, I would go to a chemical engineering department of a particular academic, maybe IISc or anything. It can be anyone. And then I talk to that specific faculty who has the expertise in that domain so that we can collaboratively work together and come out with a solution. So each challenges are different, but we need to know at what point of time we can intervene with each other. So different industries have different norms. Like for FMCG, like the company that I represent, I have a set of people who looks into the open innovation, working with different academicians, understanding what they have in offer. And when we find that something is relevant for us, useful for us, we collaborate with them to make things better. Or if we need we need a challenge that needs to be solved, which internally we have issues, then we move to the right set of expertise who can really solve this problem. So that's the way. Yeah.
Important at what point we
okay, sir. If you have any questions, you can
yes
ask the questions.
I'm asking the question. Several of my students, can you hear me, the speaker,
Yes,
Mr.
yes, I can
Das,
speak.
Dr. Das?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Several of my students, got selected during their final year study from Ranbaxy or Reddy's Lab or other
Yeah.
from pharmacy company,
Yeah.
and they joined. And after 2 years, they came back because they saw that all their experiences that even if you don't get the PhD, you cannot be a boss. So all their bosses have PhD degree. Thought that if you do not have PhD, you cannot go further in promotion. So they came back and joined institutes or universities to start their PhD program. So I have a suggestion whether the industry, like big industries, whether they can have a PhD program for this training that they're picking up students from the various universities, whether they can, do something for their PhD degree so that they can stay in the industry.
Okay, the thing is there are different kinds of norms from different industries. So I won't be able to tell like exactly like for all industries how they work in, but I can tell you about the company that I work for. Okay, so we used to have certain PhD programs many years back. We used to have a collaboration with different academic institutes, different universities basically, where people can take a part of their research that they do in the lab as part of their PhD curriculum. And I know previously, before I joined the organization, some people have done that way also. There are certain challenges faced within our organization in terms of, some people do leave after completing their PhDs, etc. And there is kind of a norm that our organization has taken that there is no provision for people to do uh, PhD, of course, as part of their job, but they can, in special conditions, can do part-time PhDs, etc. It's case-to-case basis. There is no generic norm for that. Okay, for my Unilever as an industry, as I say. The notion that, again, as I told you, different industries are different norms. So I can't tell about pharmaceutical industries what their system is. But if I look at myself, that when I joined in the organization at a very junior level, because I completed my master's and then I was recruited through campus interview from Science College, and I joined Unilever 15 years back. And over the period of time, I've grown up into the organization to the level which PhDs and postdocs actually are. So many of my colleagues are PhDs and postdocs, which I am not actually a PhD in that sense. But if you look into the kind of the work culture or the kind of output that you bring into the organization, it all depends upon that, whether you will progress into the organization over a period of time or not. Now, in Unilever, this is the norm. So you don't need to have anything specific to be at a particular level. Of course, at managerial levels, generally the recruitment is from a PhD or a postdoc, but a person can always grow from the organization based on the output that a person has given to the organization. So on that front, I don't think it is always true for different, it will be different for different organizations, by the way. But for us, it is not really true that your bosses have to have a degree. I mean, with all respects, every degree has its importance, but it's also important to have the kind of contribution that you make to the organization overall over a period of time, which decides your fate in the organization as you grow up.
Is there any other questions?
I have a question actually.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Somnath Das, for accepting our invitation, as well as you have given a wonderful talk. My question is that is there any possibility that a MSc student in his last year or after passing MSc, a student can have some project work in your company or?
Yeah. So we do have interns. We call it summer interns, which are typically from 6 months, 9 months kind of duration. There are, since last 2 years, we are having these COVID related problems, and also they're all disrupted. But in general, we do have, yeah, from different institutes. I have not heard from Adamus anybody applied or anything like that, but generally I had students from BITS and VIT and ISER, uh, not really from other places as of now I can recall. So these three places I have seen. IITs also, IIT Madras also used to have collaborative projects with us, with their students for short to medium term, I would say. We don't have long-term projects for students.
So actually, maximum 2 months actually we are thinking of. So is there any procedure or something we have to apply to you or other official or any email ID?
Okay, there is no specific process, but what I can do is I will pass this message to the person who is the student coordinator. So there's a different group of people who does
Okay.
that, and maybe she can connect with you. I'll provide your
Okay, that will be very good.
this thing, and then we can think of. Offhand, I don't know this year what is the situation, because we are
This year
working mostly
I am
from
not
home and
also
all.
thinking. Hope everything will be normal in normal condition very soon.
Yeah.
So from
Yeah.
next year onwards, we can think of that. Some of our students were really interested because everybody are not interested in going to the academic actually. So they try to do in this professional field or do job or something.
Yes.
So for that,
Yes.
if they have some experience, then it will be better for their future prospect actually.
Yes, so I can pass that information to her,
Okay,
and
okay. Thank you
because
very much. In
I really
advance,
do not
actually.
know the I really do not know what is the process that they follow. If there are any specific other processes also there, I don't know that, because I generally ask them for students, and these are the students that I usually get. So she will contact you probably when once you
Okay,
get the
okay, okay.
information.
Thank you, thank you. We shall be
Mr.
in
Das,
contact.
Mr.
Yes,
Das, I
please.
have a question.
Yes.
The question is very relevant to what Dr. Manna was asking. It is like he said, collaboration with students. Students can go and do research, summer intern or whatever.
Yeah.
But my question is from our point of view, like we as faculty members are doing research in the department or the university. So what is the procedure to there is academia and industrial collaborations with Unilever?
So your
And
question.
what is the procedure?
Okay, so your question is a different question. It's not about students, right? It is about
Yeah, it's not about
industry
students.
academia collaboration.
Yes.
Okay, so industry academia collaboration typically happens through a cell, which is called Open Innovation in our sense. Open Innovation is a different department who looks into different different academias through which we connect. At present, I am connected with some IITs in India, and also with external to India, so like institutes in UK and things like that. So one of the thing is, if you again, what I can do is I can just connect you with the Open Innovation department so that they understand the different kind of research facilities and expertise that your center has, because it depends upon when I was talking about beauty and personal care versus home care, the kind of research will be very different. Some will be related to engineering, chemical engineering, polymer chemistry, those kind of things, and the other may be related to microbiology or virology kind of things. So uh, so depending upon that, one can choose who would be the right person with whom we can connect. And then there is a collaboration that happens. Collaborations is actually typically a kind of an agreement process between the faculty or the institute and Unilever for a specific project. And that project depends upon the business need, of course. Uh, Generally, we look into the science part of it more, because academic sources are known for the in-depth scientific understanding, and the product development part is generally taken by us, but there can be collaborative sense in that way also. It all depends upon case-to-case scenarios.
Okay. So one more thing is like you are doing project and students are going there for internship and other stuff. Say for example, if students do not go there, you have the project which is you are looking for intern students. And can you share us those kind of projects which students can do in the university itself, and we can share the results with you, kind of stuff?
Okay, there are a few things. We generally don't do a project where we can do it remotely. in an industry, I mean, in an academy, that requires actually a person who will be the supervisor. So in that case, there should be a supervisor in the industry, in the academia, who will be taking care of the project details, and then the feedback comes from there to the students. Actually, till now, for lab work related things, we don't have that kind of a model. However, there are certain projects which requires only digital tools like modeling kind of things, or building some computational tools using, say, molecular simulations, those kind of work. Probably in those kind of work where student does not really need to travel, but they can still do the work and feedback can be sent. So that's one of the things. But for lab work related stuffs, I don't think that model is still there where remotely we can do it. So student actually has to come there. And there are things which are confidential. Of course, when you work in an industrial setup, you'll know that the research remains confidential. However, the science part of it, we do publish. So we have publications in reputed journals about the science parts of it. Taking care of the things that which are relevant for business is not published, because that's an intellectual property that we look into going forward.
Okay, thank you for those informations. And is there any other questions from any participants? If no, let us thank you once again for your very informative and nice, excellent talk. And with this, I am handing over the microphone to Dr. Manna. We will have the last words.
Thank you.
Dr. Manna, it is your time now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Somnath Das, for your wonderful talk. And I am also thanking all the presenters, all the speakers who have taken their time and also had present excellent. They all had given the excellent presentations. So it's an announcement that we will start the next day, the day 2 of our session, of our symposium at 11 a.m. And I request all of you to kindly log in around 10:50 a.m. or 10:55 a.m. tomorrow. And tomorrow, during the third session, we will send you the feedback form. Tomorrow, during the third session, we shall send you the feedback form. Upon submission of that feedback form, you will receive the certificate of the participation of this symposium. I hope it's clear. There is no feedback form for each day, means day 1 feedback form, day 2 feedback form. We will have only one feedback form that we will send on the third session, means which is we'll start from 6:30 and we close at 8:30 p.m. So during that, we will send that feedback form, and please fill that feedback form, and upon receiving that feedback form, your certificate will be in your email ID. Thank you very much. And again, stay safe, stay healthy, and also wish to see you all at 11 a.m. Tomorrow. Thank you very much.